Today, we are joined by Democratic State Senator Harold Jones, the minority whip from Georgia. Senator Jones also led the fight for hate crime legislation after Arbery's death. Senator, good to see you.
Nice seeing you. Absolutely. How are you?
Good, good. Glad to have you for just a deeper dive on what we have paid so closely to for a number of days now, more than a week. As you have been paying close attention as well to our coverage, your overall feelings about where everything stands to this point within the coverage, and just your thoughts as who knows, how many days we could have left here, but clearly we are moving toward the finish line.
We're certainly moving towards the finish line. And as an attorney, I'm kind of hearing these conversations in court. It certainly brings me back to my court days when I used to do that a lot as a former prosecutor. Overall, as far as the case itself is concerned, I think that if you're a person who actually wants to see justice in this case, if that is for Ahmaud Arbery, I believe that's going on a good path. I think the case itself is one that's been tried effectively by both parties, and that's what you should ask for, and that's what you should want, is to make sure that everybody gets a fair hearing in this particular situation, and that's the key to the justice system.
So as a former prosecutor, what stands out to you so far? Where is the prosecution done well? Where is the prosecution maybe not done so well?
I think what they've done pretty well is basically presented the case and really laid it out there in a very logical kind of way, and really showed how things happen step by step. I think one of the things that you want to continue to do, though, and maybe try to impress upon, whether you get an opportunity, whether on cross-examination or even in closing, is you want to impress upon the humanity, though, of Ahmaud Arbery. I think that's also very key. The fact of what he must have been feeling at that time. A lot of times we could have been kind of focusing on, what the defendant's mindset was. And of course, we're trying to, find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But the key also is what was Ahmaud Arbery feeling too, the terror that he must have been feeling out there. And I think that's how that case has to be framed. You have to let the jury understand that not only are you looking at the defendant's mindset, but what was this person thinking while he's out there for those 5 minutes and basically being chased and told that his head might be blown off and things of that nature. You've got to make them feel that humanity that he also brings to this case.
What do you think the verdict in this trial will mean for the state of Georgia?
I think the verdict will show that, whatever the verdict is, I think that will show that, the system basically worked as it's supposed to. That's the thing about trials. We don't necessarily always want to make them a broader statement of society. But one of the things that we do have to watch out for, and it goes back to my point about the humanity of Arbery, is that we forget that sometimes when we talk about these cases. And really, in reality, when you look at how the police acted out there and things of that nature, this really is not, to me, a very close case. If you look at even the law as it was before we basically eliminated citizens' arrest, even the law as it was, a person had to be either committing a felony in your presence, or you basically had to be escaping from committing a felony. Neither one of those were present. And it was obvious that it wasn't present at the time, whether it was at the time at the scene or even at the initial interviews, that no felony had been committed. And even if that was the case law in Georgia pretty much guarantees that you're not supposed to use deadly force under those kind of circumstances, not for citizens' arrest. So that goes back to what I was talking about, the humanity of Arbery. I don't think that the police looked at him as being a person who had that humanity. They almost looked at him as this Superman type person. And we find that a lot of times, especially when we talk about African-American males in these type of circumstances, that he wasn't experiencing terror. No, he actually was attacking somebody. No, in reality, the real narrative should be that what he was facing was his last grasp at life. That's what he was actually trying to do as he defended himself. And I think that that narrative is what gets lost many times as we talk about African-American men, especially, that's the real narrative. It wasn't about him attacking anybody. It was about these was his last efforts to live and survive. And if you looked at it from that standpoint, then I think the whole case would have taken a different turn from the beginning.
So, clearly, as you just mentioned, Georgia's deep history with race has been a theme within this trial, no doubt, from the initial investigation to the jury makeup to the very colorful defense attorney, Kevin Goff. I'm sure you have some other words to describe him, but what do you think has moved you the most so far when you look focusing specifically on the issue of race and race relations?
I think what's moved me so far is the fact that we were able to get this done from the standpoint of race relations, that we were able to get it done. It wasn't necessarily an easy lift. We had some bumps in the road, but we were able to do it. But really, the standpoint of race relations will be how these narratives change. And it also even goes maybe to other cases that we've been looking at. How do these narratives change to where it's not the African American attacking persons when somebody has a gun, when somebody has a gun aimed at them, where they're being threatened, I will blow your head off if you don't stop. In some kind of way, the narrative is, well, was he attacking? The narrative almost never starts off with, this person, can you imagine the terror that they were feeling? That he actually probably been running for 5 minutes and now was out of breath. We never give that kind of humanity to persons. You know, that he was probably out of breath, probably praying and wondering, what is going to happen? Will somebody drive by to stop this situation? That is how race relations has to improve, to where we can start looking at it from that angle when we have these particular cases. That's how race relations will improve. And I hope after this case, no matter what the verdict is, but I hope after this case that when we have these cases, we can look at it from the narrative of the person who's actually been a victim of the situation.
So in the wake of Arbery's death, Georgia became the first state to repeal its citizens arrest law. You were very involved with that, as well as the hate crime legislation. Has the tragedy surrounding this trial at least moved Georgia toward positive change?
Yeah, and that's a perfect example. Number one, we did the hate crimes legislation, and then, of course, we also were able to get rid of citizens arrest. And so those two examples show that we can move towards positive change. So there is a reason to actually be, positive in this situation, but it comes from such a negative place, and it comes from a place of death, unfortunately. And that's unfortunate that to get to this place, we had to have these events happen. But now that they have, I think the positive aspect of it is that Georgia did move forward. And with all of our history, especially as far as race relations is concerned, we were able to take on these two very contentious issues and actually go into a positive place.
Georgia Senator Harold Jones, appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.